Hello and welcome to the Awaken Creators Podcast, a podcast for high vibe creatives, providing you spiritually grounded guidance to reawaken your creativity and help you release blocks, restore flow, and reclaim your joy. I am your host, Amanda, and today we are talking to Laurén Magda, y'all. She is a Michigan-based painter and digital artist who's healing generational trauma through her art, all while empowering others to feel at peace in their lives and know their worth. Her work is absolutely incredible. I've been watching her for a while and I just love her energy, and I think you will too. She is absolutely the real deal, and I really think you're going to get a lot out of this episode, so please stick around and join me in welcoming Laurén Magda to the show. Welcome, Laurén. I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yes. I've been an admirer for a really long time. And I don't know, there's just something about your work that really calls to the soul. And for those of us that are listening that aren't as familiar with what it is that you do, can you tell us about your work? How would you describe it?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to share. So I think it's important for me to give a little bit of background on where I come from, just because that really has a lot to do with the art that I make now. So I come from a background of, unfortunately, but on the flip side, fortunately, generational trauma. And when I say that, I mean that it's trauma that comes down the line of my family tree that has been unresolved for generations. And so my parents, suffered a lot from the traumas that they have experienced, and my brother and my sister. And that is kind of what plays a huge role in the art that I make, because my art is very inspired by the healing journey that I went through to go from that like traumatic, kind of negative, anxious, depressed kind of inner child feeling, even, as an adult at 32 years old now. But actually my inner healing journey really started when I was 29. So it was a few years ago. And I just hit a breaking point with my family, and I needed to take a step back, and I got myself into therapy, and I did a lot of work internally on my own. And part of my process was getting back into my art in a way that I had never explored before, which was really different for me because I've been an artist my whole life. I actually went to art school, have my degree in illustration, but I have been doing graphic design for the last 11 years. And my practice kind of fell by the wayside, my personal artistic practice, for those 11 years. However, when I went through this healing journey, I realized that my art was never truly fulfilling. The art that I made previous to year 29 of my life was very it was not abstract, which is what I do now. I definitely consider myself more of an abstract artist. My art was very subject matter based. So it was portraiture, it was animals, things like that, and semi-realistic. And now my art is it's bold, it's colorful, there's a lot of lines, there's a lot of eyes. So there is one subject matter, which is the eyes that I do in my work. And so my work is very organic and very intuitive, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to ask you kind of what that evolution of art school you versus this kind of more independent, intuitive process of art making, like what those processes kind of look like and compare to each other.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I can get in a little bit more into that. So art school me I guess I like to call that me, like institution me, because it kind of stems back even to grade school all the way up through high school, was someone who felt very, um, I was kind of caught in my trauma, and it made me feel kind of insignificant. And the one thing that made me feel significant was when people would tell me that my art was so beautiful, and they would praise me for it, and I was doing like the drawings of tigers and
Mm.
deer and lions and people, and so I got kind of stuck in that role, and it didn't feel quite right. Although my artwork was beautiful, quote unquote, it didn't feel authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time, like I said, 29 years, to realize that the practice that I do now is authentic. I don't compare myself to other artists anymore. That was definitely something I had to work through as well. I was stuck in comparison. Um, and yeah, so now it is definitely an organic experience. I actually started with drawing like doodles on post-it notes when I first started this journey, and those really naturally developed within about a year to bigger pieces, and I call them pieces now versus like doodles on post-it notes. Although that is perfectly okay. I really feel like there's no like perfectly accurate description for a piece of artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your soul is creating and putting out into the world and making something from nothing is art. So I just want to make that clear as
Wow.
well for the listeners.
That's
So
huge. That's huge.
yeah.
And I'm so glad that you really talked about that kind of journey to authenticity. I think that's a major theme in our creative life is finding ourselves and finding our truth and finding out what we're all about. Um, do you feel like looking back on your life, was there always a sliver of it there or was it completely blocked out?
There for the like as far as the intuitive, authentic, artistic voice, yes, there was
Mhm.
always a sliver of it there, and I didn't recognize that growing up because it was just something that I did, and it didn't like it never fully formed into what it is now because I didn't kind of let it. But when I was a kid, I used to draw. When I was in school, I would draw doodles in the margins of my notebooks, and particularly in math class. And I'm sure some of the creative people in
I can
your
relate to that.
audience, yeah, I figured someone would, because math is just not a strong subject for me, which is fine. And my mind is just too creative. So I would, in order to like get through it, I would doodle in my margins, and it was not. It was always abstract, you know. It was nothing like what I was drawing. Really, what I thought was my art growing up, but in reality, the art that meant the most to me were the doodles,
Hmm.
and it was the biggest revelation I've ever had in my life when, at 29, I realized that that was my true passion, was the abstract versus,
Mm.
and I some of my art is still the subject matter. I cross over from time to time, but when I do it, it feels right, you know?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Wow. I think that's so beautiful that you were able to rediscover that part of yourself. Um, and as I get to know more and more creatives, I find that that's kind of a theme and that
Mhm.
there is that sliver of us and it sort of gets buried by life experience or, traumas. And the rest of the process is this sort of unveiling or remembering of who we truly are beyond all of that. Can you talk a little bit about what your unveiling process was? You mentioned this kind of pivotal moment when you were 29. Like, take us from there to now. Like, what's that evolution been like for you?
Oh, sure. I'm glad to share that. So, I think like before I got to this point, I had to hit like some kind of a rock bottom, as many people do, for big revelations to happen in their life. And, it doesn't always, but for me, it did. I A lot was going well. I won't lie. Like my husband and I had just gotten married. We just bought our first house. However, the house started falling apart when we first moved in, and like I was not, you know, particularly happy at that point in my life. I had a lot of issues with panic, and my family was just really crumbling, and it was really hard to deal with that. As it always has been in my life, but it all kind of came to a breaking point. And at that point, I actually decided to work um, with someone who I'm lucky to call my friend. Even before this, my friend is a business coach, a creative business coach, and she was the one who helped me kind of uncover what I needed to do to move forward with my artwork. And so it was almost like therapy. What she helped me, uncover was it was a therapeutic experience. And working with her showed me kind of the natural steps that I needed to take in order to heal these traumas, at least enough to feel more confident, feel less anxious, and to start delving into my art in a way that was just completely organic and not in a way that had any parameters around it. She just told me essentially, like, do what feels the most like you. And at first it was very strange to have to sit down and not make a piece of art that was like a masterpiece in my mind or something
Mm.
worthy. You know what I mean? It was just a totally amazing experience to have the freedom to make something just for the amazing meditative feeling of making it, for the
Mm-hmm.
practice. And that's a lot of what my work is about nowadays. Is it's the practice, not the outcome. And I think that the outcome usually turns out to be something that people gravitate towards because they can feel the energy of the meditation, of the practice.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, working with my business coach up until this moment has been kind of a natural progression, but I won't sugarcoat it. Healing can bring up a lot of um, hard feelings and emotions, and
Right?
I definitely went through some shadow work and scary stuff to get here, but I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah. There's a lot of creepy crawlies under those rocks.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, how has the creative process and your art and the things that you make, how has that helped you heal?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, so when I set out to create the collection that I've been working on for the last few years, I didn't have an idea in mind. It just kind of naturally came to be. And I realized through making these pieces and seeing them all together that they actually form a collection of um, kind of like touchstones of my healing process. So
Mm.
one is called Zen Moment, which is about, the process of meditating in my artwork. One is Look to the Heavens, which is kind of signifies my belief in the universe, that it plays a role in all of this here on Earth. And it's all of these pieces start with kind of like a seed of an idea, and they grow from there just organically. And the process is just something that flows naturally and feels so good. Like I truly would not want to do anything. If I would just paint all day, every day, because it is such a naturally healing process for me, as it is for all creatives who find their flow. And it's helped me process, as meditation does, process a lot of hard things and emotions so that I could come out the other side stronger. And I feel like that's like the blessing of art, of the process, is processing through
Mm-hmm.
process. So,
Right. So I wanted to ask you about that. So for anybody listening who's really inspired to use their creativity as a healing modality, which is what, I definitely think that you agree is possible and what Awaken Creators really tries to encourage. How would someone approach their creative process with the intention of healing versus, say, uh, you know, creating a piece for a commission or, someone else, or to hit some kind of outcome? Like what would be the differences there? How would you encourage someone to approach it with a healing intention?
oh, absolutely. This is a really great question. So, coming from a commercial art background, I have a lot of experience working with clients and working with different people to create artwork. And the way that I approach my own artwork from a healing perspective is very, very different because it has to come from your essence. And I feel like it's probably pretty similar for many people, many creatives, in terms of approaching it from a healing perspective and um, setting aside like sacred time to pursue your art and make a practice of it, make it special. I feel like the thing that really makes your art um, a healing practice is to approach it almost as if you would a self-care routine, something that you're doing for yourself and nobody else. Think of it that way. And, if you pray to an entity or, the universe, angels, that might be something that you can incorporate as you go. Putting on your favorite playlist that makes you feel really good. I'd say that doing anything that feels most like you, and that doesn't have to be something that is something that you see that other people do. Just maybe reflect on what it is that makes you feel the most like you and makes you feel excited to create. And um, yeah, I hope that's not just rambling. I hope there's something something good in there.
No,
But
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those are elements, those, like creating a sacred practice or some kind of ritual. And that word kind of carries this a lot of weight, I think. But really, to me, ritual is just like a set of behaviors that you do before you engage in something. So, you know, if it's just maybe you open a window to let the fresh
Mhm.
air in, maybe you light a candle, like that's ritual enough to say, this is different from me just sitting, gonna bang something out because somebody needs
Mhm.
it versus this is for me. This is what I need.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. The ritualistic aspect of it is huge. When I actually sat down and took time to do my art, not in front of the TV with my husband, but and if that works for you, that's fine, but it didn't feel like me. I needed to be in my own space. I actually create on my bed most of the time, which some people laugh at, but it's my comfort zone, and it's a place where I feel really good about being myself and being in my process. So if you feel good in bed, or if you feel better in nature or your studio or with other people, everybody's different. So I guess I just emphasize doing something that feels the most like you kind of makes it like um a healing practice in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know creatives who they do it on the floor, or
Mm-hmm.
and others who they like having their children around them when they're creating.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely the whole point is authenticity, right? And that's from A to Z. That includes the process before, during, and after. So thank you
Yes.
for
You're
emphasizing that.
welcome.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit about how creativity has maybe swooped in and helped you overcome challenges in your life, or ways that you've maybe used your creativity to move through experiences. Is it something that you feel like really shows up for you in a time of need?
Oh, without a doubt. I feel like it's easy to push it off in times of stress and, a time where you need that sacred space and healing. But through the years, I've learned that in those times, it's best for me to turn towards my art practice because, like I said, it is such a meditative process for me that it helps me process a lot of emotions and baggage, and I come out the other side a better person, not just for myself but for the people that I love. A big way that it helps me is when I actually suffer from something called panic disorder. And so, even though I'm medicated for it and I go to therapy, sometimes I'll just be hit with a panic attack out of nowhere for no reason. And I've learned through time that sitting down with my artwork can really help me focus in on the little details of a painting that I'm working on, and the whole world melts away around me. And almost like magic, my panic attack goes away. And I
Mm.
know that it's not the same for everyone, but I have found that for me, um, going to my artwork to help with mental illness is such a relief and a blessing. And it's something that I've had to realize through time, of course. It didn't come naturally, but I'm really glad that I have that in my mental health toolbox now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's in order, I think, to have that perspective of your art, you really do have to look at it from a this is just for me. There's no expectation attached to it perspective
Hmm.
versus, boy, by the end of this better be good enough to sell.
Right. That's a slippery slope to go down. And I've been there because as somebody who has, always wanted my art to be a source of abundance for myself because I feel like it's the reason why I was put on this earth. I always used to get stuck in comparison and stuck in procrastination and all of these negative, concepts just because I wanted my art to be something that would quote unquote sell. And when I released that, funny enough, when I released that, my art did start to sell. So it's just kind of funny and ironic how that works.
Well, I mean, from an energetic, I think, and vibrational standpoint, I think it makes perfect sense, right? Because
Hmm.
again, when you are creating from that free space, you are really putting all of that love and passion and openness and vulnerability into your piece. And at least in my experience, I feel like I can feel that when I interact with someone else's work, and you know, it resonates with you, I think, for that reason.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, I totally agree. That's something that I've had to open myself up to over time as well, to realize that people can feel the energy that you put into your artwork, and it just naturally resonates outward, even if it's something you don't feel like is something that will sell or is like something that you are necessarily proud of aesthetically. It's the feeling of the process that is naturally embedded energetically into the work itself.
Right on. All right. Well, so besides all of this creative beautiful intuitive work that you are doing, what is something else that you are really passionate about?
Ooh, this is something I wasn't prepared for.
We're all
Um,
multidimensional, right?
yes, no, absolutely. I mean, if I just did art, I'd probably go crazy. There's definitely more things in life that are beautiful to experience. For me, I'd say gardening is very high on the list. I am a Taurus and I'm a natural earth lover, and just I think that everything that I love has some kind of creative aspect of it. Gardening is one of them. I also love journaling as another form of kind of creative release, if you would. Um, and I love animals. I have a dog and a cat, and I always just naturally gravitate towards animals at parties and social events, and typical empath here. Um, and and cooking. I love to cook too.
Nice. Okay. What's something that you've cooked recently that you loved? Turns out
Ooh,
great.
let me think about this. Something that I cooked that I loved. I'm always coming up with new things. So as a vegan, it's not always easy to make something very cheesy or, with the essence of cheese. But I'm pretty proud of the recent lasagna that I made. It was very cheesy and creamy and delicious and warm, and it was
Wow.
lovely.
Wow. Wow. We might have to get, did you use a recipe or you just
I
winged it?
did I did use a recipe. I used a recipe, but I tweaked it a little bit. That's kind of how
Okay.
I like to roll with my cooking.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Totally. Me too.
Mhm.
Well, we might have to steal that recipe from you because that sounds really good.
All right.
All
I'd love to
right.
hear.
So yeah, well, that's beautiful, Laurén. I think you are just amazing. And the work that you are producing is so powerful. Can you tell us what projects you're working on like currently, and what do you have planned for the future? Like what can we look forward to from you?
Well, thank you so much for having me on this podcast, because I also love what you're doing. And, everyone needs that person to kind of inspire them and move them forward. And you are definitely a source of that. So I really appreciate being
Thank
here
you.
and you saying that about my artwork. Um, so I just decided recently to just instead of doing another collection, I decided to keep doing the collection that I have been doing, because I definitely don't feel like it's something that I want to stop doing right now. I think there's more that can come of it. So it's a collection I'm calling my Portals collection, because every piece is a painting, a traditional painting done on a round piece of wood. So I'm going to keep exploring that. All of these pieces are for sale on my website and will continue to be, whether they're represented by a gallery or not. I also have taken great joy in creating a kind of curated um, selection of products that are more affordable than some of my larger paintings, so that they're more accessible for many people. And I have everything from really nice, high quality journals to prints and phone cases at this time. I'd like to explore other things like tapestries, and so we'll see where that
Nice.
goes. That's something you can expect to see in the future. And yeah, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing in terms of traditional art and really get it out there for people who want it and need it. And I also love to share about, I love that my art, or art in general, artists have a platform with their artwork to talk about some hard stuff or issues that they care about. And for me, it's generational trauma and mental health and healing. And so you'll definitely see more of that in the coming months and years.
Beautiful. Well, we need it. We need more people to talk about it and to demonstrate that healing is possible and that it is possible
Mhm.
to live a rich, full, enjoyable life afterwards. Um,
Mhm.
that's beautiful. So let's say I'm listening to this podcast. I love every single word that's coming out of your mouth. Where can I find out more about you? Where can I learn more about your work and support you? Where can I go to support you?
Absolutely. So I tried to make it as easy as possible. My website is my name, Laurén Magda, no accent, even though I do have an accent on my E in reality. So it's basically Lauren Magda, Magda.com. And I'd say the place where I hang out on social media the most at this point is Instagram. So Laurén Magda Art is my Instagram, and you can find me there. Also through my website, and that's where you can find everything that I have to offer. If you'd like to support me, or you can support me. And I just love connecting with other people, other creatives in general. So, if you feel called to, I would love to connect with you.
Beautiful. Yay. All right. Well, I'm excited. I can't wait to see what comes through you in the future. And I wish you all the best in abundance, love, support, and joy for the remainder of your lifetime here, Laurén. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful thing to say. I have nothing but the same for you as well, Amanda.
Much love. Much love.
Wow. You know, I always find it so refreshing and reassuring to hear from creators who I feel like really get it. People who've not only been there, but have truly found freedom within themselves, just transcend all the bullshit and really thrive in their creative journey. I know I'm inspired, and I really hope that you are too. Your creativity is a powerful portal for healing. And I was happy to hear that Laurén also embraces ritual as a way to differentiate a healing approach to art from your average creation session. I've been engaging in ritual prior to creating for years now. In fact, I've distilled all my best tips and advice into a beautiful PDF guide that I think you will love. So if you're interested in developing your own ritual for creative healing, you could download my free guide at weareawakencreators.com. Give it a try, customize it, and start your healing journey today. And if you're not already part of the Awaken Creators family on Instagram, what are you doing? Get on over to Instagram at awaken.creators and join in the conversation. We're talking all about creativity and its emergence with healing and spirituality on the weekly. You will enjoy it, I'm sure. Thank you so much for listening, for liking, for sharing, for subscribing, for growing the Awaken Creators family with me. Keep creating, keep elevating your vibration, and remember that you can absolutely change the world with your joy. Much love.